The first time I touched the meteorite, it burned through my gloves. Not with heat, but with something deeper. Something alive. I remember staring at the strange black rock lying in the sand outside the desert city of Arkesh. The impact crater around it still smoked under the red twin suns of the planet Terralis. Every scanner in the mining camp had gone crazy when it landed. Most people stayed away from meteorites. Out here in the outer colonies, things that fell from space were rarely harmless. But I wasn't most people. My name is Aaron Kale, a blacksmith's apprentice from the lower districts of Varkesh. I had spent my entire life hammering scrap metal into tools for miners and guards. And the moment I saw that meteorite, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I was going to turn it into a sword, the rock from the stars. The meteorite weighed nearly 200 kilograms. Dragging it back to my forge took an entire night and 3 broken hover carts. By sunrise, I was standing over the strange stone inside my workshop, sweat dripping down my face. Up close, the meteorite looked even stranger. Its surface was dark silver, threaded with glowing blue veins that pulsed faintly like veins beneath skin. I tapped it with a hammer. Clang! The sound rang deeper than steel. My mentor, old Garik, walked in just as I struck it again. "What in the void is that?" he asked. "A meteorite," I said proudly. Garik crossed his arms. "You brought a rock from space into my forge. It's not just a rock." He looked closer. Then his eyebrows lifted. "Those veins," he muttered. "That's star metal." Star metal was legendary. Extremely rare. Almost impossible to forge. Weapons made from it were said to cut through plasma shields. And only the royal armories had ever worked with it. Garik looked at me carefully. "You're not thinking about forging this, are you?" I grinned. "Oh, I absolutely am." Forging the impossible. It took 3 days just to break the meteorite apart. Normal tools couldn't even scratch it. I had to build a plasma furnace powerful enough to melt its surface. When the metal finally began to glow, the entire forge filled with a strange humming sound, like distant singing. The molten star metal flowed like liquid starlight. I poured it into a blade mold I had designed months earlier, a long curved sword meant for speed and precision. Garik watched nervously the entire time. "This is dangerous," he said. "Star metal reacts to energy." "I know," I said, adjusting the plasma heat. "Then why risk it?" Because I had spent my entire life forging tools for other people. For once, I wanted to create something legendary. When the blade finally cooled, I pulled it from the mold. It was beautiful. The metal shimmered silver and blue, with glowing veins running along the edge. And the moment I touched the hilt, the sword activated. Blue energy raced along the blade like lightning. I nearly dropped it. "What did you do?" Garik gasped. I didn't do anything." The sword hummed softly in my hand. Alive. The first test. I stepped outside the forge into the dusty training yard. A pile of old armor plates sat against the wall. I swung the sword. The blade moved so smoothly, it barely felt like it had weight. When it struck the armor, the metal split cleanly in half. Not cut, separated, like butter under a hot knife. Garik stared. "That's impossible." I swung again, testing the balance. The blade moved, as if it wanted to move, like it was guiding my hand. Then something unexpected happened. The sword's glow intensified, and a holographic symbol appeared above the blade. A royal crest. Garrick's face went pale. That's the Imperial seal. My stomach tightened. Only one group used that crest, the Queen's Guard. Before either of us could speak again, a loud voice echoed from the street. "Imperial inspection. Open this forge immediately." Garik looked at me. "You're in trouble. The Queen's soldiers, The forge doors slid open. 6 armored soldiers stepped inside. Their armor gleamed black and gold. Queen's Guard. The captain stepped forward, his helmet retracting. His eyes immediately locked onto the sword in my hand. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. "I made it." The soldiers exchanged looks. "That blade carries the Queen's crest," the captain said slowly. "It appeared on its own," I replied. "That's not possible." He stepped closer. Star metal forged weapons automatically bind to royal blood. My heart skipped. "I don't have royal blood." He studied me for a moment, then said something surprising. "We're taking you to the palace." The Queen. The royal palace of Terralis floated above the capital city like a silver star. I had never been closer than the outer gates. Now I was standing inside the throne hall, and at the far end sat the most powerful woman in the system, Queen Liara. She was younger than I expected, maybe 25, but her presence filled the entire chamber. Silver hair, sharp golden eyes, and a calm authority that made everyone in the room stand straighter. The captain knelt. "Your Majesty, we found this man forging a star metal blade bearing the royal crest." The hall grew quiet. Queen Liara stood and walked toward me. Her gaze shifted to the sword. "May I?" I handed it to her carefully. The moment she touched the hilt, the blade erupted with light. The glow doubled. The royal crest expanded into a brilliant hologram above us. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. She looked at me. "You forged this?" "Yes, Your Majesty." She studied the blade closely, then spoke words that changed my life. "This sword recognizes me." Everyone in the hall knew what that meant. Royal weapons bonded only with those chosen by the throne. But there was a second rule, the one the court historian nervously whispered next. When a blade recognizes the Queen, he swallowed. It also recognizes its creator. Queen Liara slowly looked back at me. The ancient law. The court erupted in murmurs. I stood there completely confused. "What does that mean?" I asked quietly. The historian stepped forward. "There is an ancient law from the founding of the empire," he explained. "If a star metal weapon bonds to the reigning monarch, the one who forged it becomes." He hesitated. The Queen finished the sentence calmly. "My royal consort." The hall went silent. My brain froze. "I'm sorry, what?" Queen Liara's lips curved slightly. "It means blacksmith." She handed the sword back to me. "You may have accidentally proposed marriage." Chaos in the court. The nobles immediately began arguing. "This law is ancient. It cannot apply now." "He's a commoner." But the historian shook his head. "The law was never repealed." Queen Liara returned to her throne, thoughtful. Then she spoke clearly. Silence. The room obeyed instantly. She looked at me again. "Aaron Kale, correct?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "You forged a weapon powerful enough to awaken royal star metal." "I didn't know it would." "Nevertheless, you did." She paused, then smiled slightly. "And according to imperial law, that makes you my groom." My knees nearly gave out. A queen's decision. The court expected her to reject the law. Instead, Queen Liara surprised everyone. She stood again and descended the steps of the throne, stopping only a few feet from me. "Tell me something, Aaron." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Why did you forge the sword?" I thought for a moment, then answered honestly. "Because I wanted to create something worthy of legend." The Queen studied my face carefully. Then she laughed softly. "That may be the most honest answer I've heard in this court." She turned to the nobles. "The law stands." Gasps filled the hall. One noble protested loudly. "You can't marry a blacksmith." Queen Liara's eyes flashed. I can marry whoever the Empire's founding law permits. She looked back at me, and besides, her smile returned. I find the story interesting. Training the blacksmith. Over the next weeks, my life turned upside down. I moved into the palace. Royal instructors began teaching me everything a consort needed to know. Politics, swordsmanship, diplomacy. Apparently being married to the queen meant occasionally defending the empire. The sword I forged, now named Starfall, became my official weapon. And, strangely, it grew stronger every time I trained. The glowing veins responded to my movements like they were alive. One evening during training, Queen Liara appeared in the arena. She watched silently as I sparred with 3 royal guards. When the fight ended, she approached. "You're improving quickly." "I had a good teacher," I said. "You mean the sword?" "Partly." She folded her arms. "Do you regret it? Forging the blade?"
No.
Her golden eyes held mine. "Becoming my groom." I thought about it. A month ago, I was a blacksmith's apprentice. Now I was engaged to the ruler of an empire. Strangely, "No," I said. She smiled. "The threat from the outer rim." Just when things started to feel normal, the empire received troubling news. A warlord fleet had entered Terrali's space, led by a notorious pirate lord named Varric. He had heard rumors of the Star Metal Sword, and he wanted it. Or more specifically, he wanted to capture the queen. The royal council panicked, but Queen Liara remained calm. She turned to me. "Well, Aaron," she said, "looks like we'll test your sword." The battle. Varric's flagship descended toward the capital city under cover of night. Dropships filled the sky. The palace alarm screamed. I stood beside Queen Liara on the balcony, overlooking the battlefield. "Ready?" she asked. I tightened my grip on Starfall. The blade ignited with brilliant blue light. "As I'll ever be." We leapt into the fight together. Enemy soldiers flooded the palace courtyard. But the moment Starfall touched their weapons, they shattered. The sword cut through armor, shields, even energy barriers. Within minutes, the courtyard cleared. Then Varric himself arrived. The pirate lord towered in massive powered armor. "So that's the famous sword," he growled. "Yes," I replied. "And you're not taking it." The duel. Varric charged. His plasma hammer crashed toward me. I rolled aside and slashed. Starfall struck his armor and sliced straight through the plating. Varric roared in shock. We circled each other. He swung again. This time I stepped forward instead of back. Starfall flashed. The pirate's hammer split in half. One final strike ended the fight. Varric fell. Silence spread across the battlefield. Then cheers erupted from the royal guards. The queen walked toward me slowly. "Well," she said, "you certainly make a convincing royal groom." The wedding. 3 months later, the entire empire watched the royal wedding broadcast. A blacksmith from the outer colonies, marrying the queen of Terralis. I stood beside Liara on the palace balcony. Thousands cheered below. She leaned closer and whispered, "You know." "What?" "If that meteorite hadn't landed outside your forge, I'd still be making mining tools." She laughed softly. "And I'd still be dealing with boring nobles." I looked down at Starfall hanging at my side. Funny how things work. Queen Liara took my hand. "Yes." Her smile was warm. Sometimes legends begin with a falling star. And sometimes they begin with a blacksmith who decides to forge one. The cheers from the capital city echoed far into the night. From the balcony of the royal palace, I could see lights stretching across the entire horizon of Terralis. Ships hovered in the sky, Fireworks burst in shimmering colors, and the people of the empire celebrated a wedding that none of them had expected. A queen and a blacksmith. If someone had told me a year earlier that I would be standing beside the ruler of an interstellar empire, I would have laughed in their face. Yet there I was. Queen Liara stood beside me, wearing a ceremonial silver crown that shimmered beneath the city lights. Her expression was calm and confident, but when she glanced at me, there was something warmer behind her eyes. Something real. The crowd below shouted our names again. Liara. Aaron. Liara. Aaron. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. I think they like you, she said with a teasing smile. I'm not sure they know what they're cheering for, I admitted. She laughed softly. They're cheering for hope. I turned toward her. Hope. Liara nodded and looked out over the city again. For centuries, the empire was ruled only by noble bloodlines. The same families, the same traditions, the same walls between rulers and the people. She paused. But today, those walls cracked. I understood what she meant. A simple forge worker standing beside the queen meant something to the people. It meant the empire might be changing. And that idea alone was powerful. But peace, as I would soon learn, never lasted long in a galaxy full of ambition. The hidden truth of the sword. A week after the wedding, life in the palace began to settle into something resembling routine. I attended council meetings, learned about trade routes and planetary defenses, and trained daily with Starfall, the sword forged from the meteorite. But something strange had begun happening. The sword was changing. At first it was subtle. The glowing blue veins along the blade pulsed more frequently. The energy inside it grew stronger each time I used it. Then one night during training, something unexpected happened. I swung the blade through the air. Instead of simply cutting, Starfall released a wave of light that sliced clean through 3 training drones at once. They exploded into sparks. I stared at the sword. That definitely didn't happen before. A familiar voice answered from behind me. No. It didn't. Queen Liara stepped into the training chamber. She had been watching. You felt it too? She asked. The sword is evolving, I said. She nodded slowly. Star metal doesn't just react to energy. It reacts to its wielder. I frowned. What does that mean? Liara stepped closer and gently touched the flat of the blade. The glowing veins brightened. It means, she said quietly, the sword is bonding to you the same way it bonded to me. I felt a strange chill. And that's a problem? She hesitated. Not a problem. Then what? A prophecy. The forgotten prophecy. The next day, Liara took me to the oldest section of the palace. Deep beneath the main structure were archives that dated back to the founding of the empire. Ancient texts, star maps, and records of things long forgotten. An elderly historian greeted us. Your Majesty. Liara nodded. Show him the prophecy. The old man retrieved a dusty data tablet and activated a hologram. Ancient symbols appeared in glowing lines of light. He began reading. When the star falls from the heavens and is forged by mortal hands, the blade shall awaken the throne. I looked at Liara. Sounds poetic. The historian continued. The queen who claims the blade and the smith who shaped it shall stand together when darkness rises beyond the stars. I shifted uneasily. Darkness. Liara met my eyes. There's more. The historian finished the final line. Only together shall they unite the empire or watch it fall. The room went silent. I rubbed my forehead. So, no pressure. Liara smirked slightly. You're adjusting to royal destiny surprisingly well. The new threat. 2 months later, the prophecy began to make sense. A fleet appeared at the edge of imperial space. But it wasn't a pirate fleet. It wasn't even human. The ships were massive, jagged structures made of black metal that absorbed starlight. Entire colonies reported communications being cut off, and the first fleet that the Empire sent to investigate never returned. The High Council panicked. They're invading. We must fortify the core systems. But Queen Liara remained calm. She stood from her throne and looked directly at me. Looks like the prophecy is early. I sighed. Of course it is. The Battle of Terralis Prime. The alien fleet arrived above Terralis Prime 3 days later. Hundreds of ships darkened the sky. People across the capital watched in fear. The palace alarm screamed once again. But this time, the threat was far greater than pirates. I stood beside Liara in the command chamber. Fleet commanders shouted orders across holographic displays. Enemy ships began descending. Liara turned to me. Ready to test Starfall again? I tightened my grip on the sword. The blade immediately ignited with brilliant blue energy. Always. The awakening of Starfall. We boarded a Royal Combat Cruiser and launched toward the alien fleet. The moment we entered orbit, enemy drones surrounded us. Our fighter escorts struggled to hold them back. Then something incredible happened. Starfall reacted. The blade blazed brighter than ever before. Energy surged through the entire ship's systems. "What's happening?" the pilot shouted. I stared at the sword. "I think it's activating." Liara placed her hand on the hilt beside mine. The moment she did, Starfall erupted with power. A massive wave of blue energy burst outward from our ship. The drones around us disintegrated instantly. The pilot stared at the scanners. "Your Majesty, the sword just wiped out half their attack formation." Liara looked at me. "Well." She smiled. "That's new." The turning point. Using the power of Starfall, we led the Imperial fleet straight into the enemy formation. Each time the sword unleashed its energy wave, entire clusters of alien ships were destroyed. It was like the blade had been waiting centuries for this moment. Finally, we reached the massive central ship, the alien command vessel. It was nearly the size of a city. Liara looked at me. "One more strike." I nodded. Together, we raised the sword. The blade blazed like a star. Then we brought it down. A beam of pure energy shot from Starfall and pierced straight through the alien flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship split apart in a silent explosion. Across space, the remaining alien vessels suddenly retreated. The invasion was over. Peace after the storm. Days later, celebrations once again filled the capital city. This time, the entire empire celebrated not just a royal wedding, but a victory. The empire had survived its first alien invasion, and the legends of the meteorite sword spread across every colony. Some called it the Blade of the Queen. Others called it the Sword of the Stars. But Liara had chosen a different name. "Our blade," she said one evening. We stood again on the palace balcony, overlooking the city. Starfall hung at my side. The stars above Terralis glittered peacefully. "You know," I said, "this all started with a rock falling into the desert." Liara smiled. "Yes. And I just wanted to make a sword." "Well," she said, leaning gently against my shoulder. "You did." She looked up at the sky. "And you helped save an empire." I exhaled slowly. "Not bad for a blacksmith." She squeezed my hand. "Not bad for my groom." The legend begins. Years later, historians would write about that day. They would tell stories about the meteorite sword, the alien invasion, and the blacksmith who married a queen. But the part they always got wrong was the ending. Because the story didn't end with a wedding, or a battle, or even a prophecy fulfilled. It ended with something much simpler. Two people standing side by side, watching the stars, and preparing for whatever new adventures the galaxy would send their way. And somewhere deep within Starfall's glowing metal, the light of the fallen meteorite continued to burn, waiting for the next legend to begin.